is no better way to react to the 2025 NFL Draft Combine than a 4-round Superflex PPR rookie mock draft. We certainly have risers, we certainly have fallers, and we're going to get into all of them right now. First things first, you have to know whenever I'm doing a mock draft, I'm doing a combination of my rankings and where I expect players to actually go in ADP. I'll talk through where there's differences as we're going through the draft. If you want to see my rankings, the link will be in the episode description of patreon.com/rookiebigboard. And if you learn even one thing from this video, please give it a like. 101, it's Ashton Jeanty. We're not going to get cute and we're not going to waste a lot of time talking about Ashton Jeanty because we know he's the 101. He's pretty locked in. Did not test at the combine, measured in. The measurements were spot on. We know everything we need to know about Ashton Jeanty, and everything we're saying here is that a top 10 pick at the absolute minimum, a top 20 pick is absolutely within range for Ashton Jeanty. Moving on to 102 here, it is going to be Totoria McMillan. Now there is starting to be some chatter around the idea that maybe McMillan's not the 102. If your league is running back hungry, maybe somebody jumps him, but I'm sorry, I just don't see it. If you're not in on Totoria McMillan, I think you're overthinking it. 6'4", 219, he's got great size, impressive boundary threat, he's an excellent athlete. He moves so well for his size. Excellent route runner. A lot of folks critiquing his separation ability. You have to understand the context of the offense and of the player, man. Catching balls from Noah Fafita, he would consistently separate. Fafita would underthrow, or then McMillan would have to react late. It checks out across the board. I still think McMillan can be a top 10 NFL draft pick, and he should be going off the board 102, even in Superflex leagues where Cam Ward should be coming off the board 103. Ward is heavy favorite here to be the first pick in the 2025 NFL draft, and for good reason here. He's got a big arm. He's got athleticism. He played very well within the pocket at Miami last year. He's got good escapability. He's a bit of a gunslinger. He needs to rein in his accuracy. He's not a perfect prospect. He's not the best QB1 that we've seen over the last few years, but I think Ward comes in with the ability to be a really solid quarterback for NFL purposes and a low-end quarterback one for fantasy football purposes. And if you can get a low-end quarterback one at pick 103, you're doing very well. It says a lot about the value of your draft picks this year that you have the ability to get the QB1 at the 103. After this is where the tier really breaks open. And I mentioned folks seem to be running back hungry. And so I did scooch Amari and Hampton up to the 104. He's been 105, 106, even 108 in some previous rookie mock drafts I've done. And he's been my locked in running back two for a while, but consensus has finally caught on. 6'0", 221. Hampton is a power runner. He does very well between the tackles. He's light on his feet. He's elusive in tight space. And I do think Hampton has better hands than he's given credit for. When I say consensus has caught on, there's a lot of tailing right now with it seems like he is now a consensus first-round NFL draft pick. And I've been projecting him in the NFL mock draft videos that we've been doing at the Rookie Big Board as a first-round pick for a couple months now. I'm really excited to see that the consensus is locked in on it because Hampton's a great power running back. He has the opportunity to be a high-end running back two for fantasy purposes or a low-end running back one, a really good value to get there at 104. 105, even if it's not a super tight end premium league, I want Tyler Warren, man. I'm getting Tyler Warren on a lot of my rosters. Didn't test at the combine, but he had the size checked out, and we have enough on film to love this 6'5", 256 versatile athlete with great hands. He's a powerful blocker. He's got versatility in the sense of where he's used around the field. We know he took snaps at quarterback. He took snaps at center. He was in line. He was out wide. You can do a lot with Tyler Warren. Wouldn't shock me if he's a top 10 pick. Lock him into being a top 20 pick. But here's the biggest riser. Matthew Golden, a 4.29 40 time. And I knew Matthew Golden was fast, but I had to bump up his speed score because I didn't know my man was 4.29 fast. And you might say 106 is too much of an overreaction, but I'm telling you folks, he's been climbing for a while. We've been talking about that. A 4.29 140. That's probably going to get him in the top 15 picks of the NFL draft. And if he's drafted that high, he's going 106 in your rookie drafts. He might even go higher. And the thing about you, Matthew Golden, that you do have to take in here is I led with his speed. I have to lead with his speed. He's more than his speed. He's got sticky hands. He's got good reaction skills. He wins over the middle. He's got yak upside. He doesn't just win with speed. He's got a good release. So he'll separate off the line of scrimmage with that release, and he separates downfield with his speed. He's a really well-rounded wide receiver. I have his fantasy comp here as Jordan Addison. And as we're going through this video, keep in mind, if you've never watched one of my mock drafts, this is a fantasy value comparison. So thinking about the way that Jordan Addison produces for your lineup as a really solid, consistent wide receiver too, I think that's what Matthew Golden is going to do for your lineup as well. Maybe that's a little rich for the 106, but I think that's a reasonable spot to project him coming off the board. Now, 107, Travis Hunter. Hunter could go as high as 102, 103 in some rookie drafts. If he actually is drafted as a wide receiver, or he's drafted in a way where folks think that he could play a legitimate number of snaps as a wide receiver, I think there's a fair argument to taking him in the top 5 picks. Consensus right now, again, this is March. The point of a mock draft is to give you an idea how value ebbs and flows. Right now, I think it's ebbing a little bit for Hunter, because I think much more of the discussion coming out of Indianapolis is this idea of if he's going to play primarily on one side of the ball, it's going to be cornerback. That seems to be what we're getting from Indianapolis. But again, it really doesn't matter what we're hearing now. What matters with Travis Hunter is what the one team that drafts him decides that one team wants to do. It doesn't matter if 32 teams in the NFL or 31 teams in the NFL would start him at corner. If one team would start him at wide receiver and that's the one that drafted him, he's a wide receiver. And if he's a wide receiver, folks, he's going much higher than 107. That is for sure. 108, folks are coming around. TreVeyon Henderson, here we are. I've been talking for a while about how I thought Henderson was a well-rounded running back prospect. The NFL would like him. The NFL would take him as a top 50 pick. And we're starting to see that more and more in those analyst and industry insider mock drafts, this idea of TreVeyon Henderson. Good vision, good footwork, good physicality, good lower body strength, good contact balance. The one thing I will say about Henderson, and I've been high on him the whole time, 202. He weighed in at 202. I'm not saying that's going to preclude him from being good in the NFL, but he does win in a power-based way, at least in the Big Ten, and he was listed above 210. So to come in at 202, it felt a little light. Sometimes, players will drop some playing weight to be able to test better at the combine. There are games that go on here, but I hope when it comes time for him to take snaps in the NFL, he's playing somewhere between 210 and 215. I would feel better about that. 109, the absolute best value in this rookie mock draft is Luther Burden. And I am still high on Luther Burden. Burden is still the 4th overall player on my rookie big board, but I dropped him in this mock draft to emphasize that folks are letting him slide. Again, we're talking about mock drafts, NFL industry insider mock drafts we're seeing out there. They're leaving him out of the first round. I'm sorry, I just don't see it, folks. I think he's a top 20 pick. I'm willing to stand on this hill right now. I think he's going to be a top 20 pick. He releases very well. He's got excellent handwork. He wins over the middle of the field. He's a clean route runner. He's a good release. He wins after the catch, and he's fast. He proved at the combine he is fast. He tested, he ran well, 6.02, 206. That's good speed. You can play him inside. You can play him outside. Do I think Luther Burden is going to be a consistent top 12 scoring wide receiver every week for fantasy purposes? No. Do I think he can score in the top 12? Yes. I think he's going to be a consistent wide receiver 13 to 24 overall per week, right? So a wide receiver 2. And if you could get that at 109, that is really, really good value. And again, folks, I keep saying it, but it says a lot about the value of your rookie picks this year. 110, a guy who I'm still a little bit lower on, it's Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. I felt it was only fair that if I was taking TreVeyon Henderson off the board, Caleb Johnson had to come up pretty close to him, because I think there's a little bit of choose your flavor there. Some folks are really in on Henderson. Other folks like Caleb Johnson. I've heard Caleb Johnson as high as number 2 in some rankings. You know what? I understand that. I've watched the Caleb Johnson tape. I could see what you're getting at. I am still lower on Caleb Johnson. He's my running back 6. But I've come up on him a little bit. He is a powerful runner. He hits gaps hard. He's a high motor runner. He absorbs contact balance well. And, if space is blocked open for him, he can do a lot. My thing with Caleb Johnson, I just think he's a little bit more landing spot dependent because I don't see the burst. I don't see that second level speed. And I do find that his vision looked a whole lot better when he had some open space to work with. He doesn't do well to create his own space. 111 Shedeur Sanders. The slide is upon us, folks. I've been getting some critical feedback for a while on these mock drafts where I've had Shedeur Sanders in the bottom of the first round, maybe even early second round. I've been giving him top 20 pick, and I have been calling that generous. I think we're starting to see now that he might not, there's a lot of chatter of this idea that he's not a top 10 NFL draft pick. He might not even be a top 20 NFL draft pick. And that folks might be seeing him closer to Jackson Dart than Cam Ward. It seems like Ward is the consensus quarterback one leaving Indianapolis, but it doesn't change where I have Sanders. I've been mocking him at the back end of the first round this whole time. I think if you want to take him, it's fine. He's got solid mechanics. If he's behind a good offensive line, he'll have a clean platform. All right, he can put good touch on the ball at times. He's got enough arm strength to win at the NFL level. Again, if he's putting an offense and a system around him that can really support him. And so that's why my fantasy value comp is Geno Smith. Did it work out for Geno Smith everywhere? No, but when it clicked and he went to the right spot, which is where he is now in Seattle, and he's got playmakers around him, and he's able to operate, with some level of run game support, then he could be a really solid, consistent quarterback too. And I think that's the best case scenario for Shedeur Sanders. And I think the right value point to draft that is the back end of the first round. Emeka Egbuka is going to be the last selection here in the first round of this mock draft. 6'1", 202. He measured in well, did not test at the combine, but we've got enough tape on Emeka Egbuka. Smooth speed, great release, good body positioning, good hands, navigates the entire field well. He can win in the short field. He wins in the deep field. You might be saying to yourself, man, Emeka Egbuka, 112, that's absolutely ridiculous. He should be going 108, 109. I'm here with you. I'm with you. I think he's going to go 112, though. So just sit back and soak in the value. Let's get into the second round here. We're going to speed things up a little bit. We're going to talk about Quinshon Judkins, Emeka Egbuka's teammate. Came in at 220. I like that size. He tested well for being 220. I have his fantasy projection similar to James Conner, a really solid, consistent running back too. And my goodness, I'm going to take that with my second round rookie pick all day, every day. Colston Loveland. I am a little bit lower than this on Colston Loveland, but I think consensus is valuing him as an early round 2 pick. Again, especially if you're considering a tight end premium in this equation. Good hands, good athlete. But again, just keep in mind, folks, it's not the end of the world for fantasy, but he did not prove himself to be a great blocker. And again, for fantasy purposes, you're probably not playing in a points per block league as far as I know, but it can stop you from getting on the field as quickly. And if you're not on the field, you're not catching balls and you're not scoring fantasy points. So again, I'm not off Colston Loveland by any means. I just prefer to take him mid to late second round, but I think you're probably going to have to take him early second round if you really want him on your team. Rising up the board here, Jackson Dart, 203. Another example of a time where I am lower on this player than where I've put his ADP. But I know folks are bullish on Jackson Dart, especially if you're on the analytics side of things, because that Ole Miss offense, man, it jumps off the board. And Jackson Dart checks a whole lot of boxes from the analytical side of things. From the tape side, which is what I focus on, I'm seeing a player that is really raw in terms of ability to work through his progressions. I'm seeing a player who is really raw in terms of his decision making. I'm seeing a player who needs time to sit and develop on the mental side of the game. But I'm also seeing a player with a big arm, good velocity, good athleticism, scrambling ability. I'm okay taking a chance on Jackson Dart. I'd prefer to do it later in the second round, but especially if he's a top 50 pick, he's going to get a shot to win shot to start in the NFL, and he's going to get a shot to win in the NFL. And so even if you draft him mid-second round, if he's a top 50 pick, wait until he gets his chance to start and flip him before you really get a chance to see whether or not he's ready for the NFL. That's not bad strategy either. Next pick up here is Cam Skattebo. I like Skattebo. I liked him before the combine. I like him after the combine. Good size, explosive. He's got good lateral quickness. I like his vision, especially when you're thinking about the way he wins in between the tackles. This is a value comp, but I definitely do think it's a very fair style comp as well. Zach Charbonnet, similar draft capital. Again, if when Kenneth Walker was out, Zach Charbonnet was a really, really good running back. And so if you're thinking about Zach Charbonnet, but he could be a starter for an NFL team, that's a really enticing prospect here, and one I might actually go for earlier than 205, quite frankly. Next pick up here is my guy, Jaylen Noel. And I have been a little conservative with Jaylen Noel. I loved his tape for a while. I snuck him into the mid-third round of a mock draft. I bumped him up to the back end of a second round in the last mock draft. But now I'm all in. After this combine, man, 205. I'm willing to take him early second round. He lit up the combine. He ran fast. He tested athletically. And it was a well-rounded combine as well. But the tape is what it stuck out to me. Sticky hands, good ball skills, great release. He wins in traffic over the middle of the field. Jaylen Noel has good short area quickness, and he's versatile. He can play inside. He can play outside. I called it about a month ago here. I said he's a top 50 NFL draft pick, and that was bullish. It doesn't sound bullish anymore. Jaylen Noel crushed the combine. He's going to get good draft capital. I'm going to get a ton of exposure to him, and I hope you do too, because I'm also very much looking forward to exposure on this next guy, Devin Neal, 206, who dropped a bit in this mock draft because he didn't crush the combine. But I need to emphasize this. Devin Neal was never going to crush the combine. That's not what he's about, right? I've talked about Devin Neal a lot, and I don't love player comps. I try not to throw like one-to-one in terms of style, film, player comps. But for a while, I've been saying that Devin Neal reminds me a lot of Kyren Williams. And so the fact that, Kyren Williams dropped in terms of ADP post-combine, Devin Neal, similar type of performance, could drop an ADP. Let's just sit back and soak in the value, folks, because I'm not saying Devin Neal is going to come out and be a top 5 scorer like Kyren Williams, but if he ends up in an offense where he can be 200 plus touches, he will be a really consistent running back too. And so with Neal, it's the vision for me. That's number one. He's got excellent vision. He anticipates space well. He won with loaded boxes, 8-9 guys consistently while playing at Kansas. Excellent change of direction ability, good footwork, good play strength, wins in short distance. That's going to translate to touchdowns. There's a whole lot to like about Devin Neal. And Dylan Sampson is cooking with a little bit of hype as well. Coming off the board, 207 here. He's 5'8", 200. 200, that's not the best weigh-in. Didn't do much in terms of testing at the combine. I know he did the drills. He didn't do the testing, and I think Sampson would have really, really helped himself out with a good 40 time. So we're going to have to watch that Tennessee Pro Day. That's going to be an interesting one to see. But I think consensus still has him in the back end of the second round. When you watch his tape, you do see a player who fires off the snap. He's an explosive runner. He's got sharp cuts. He pairs that with good quick feet. And he's got good yards after contact ability, good play strength. So not a bad spot to be in here if you're drafting Dylan Sampson in the back end of the second round. Big riser. I'll admit it. I was too low on him. Jaden Higgins, wide receiver at Iowa State. I was so enamored with his teammate. I couldn't give Jaden Higgins the love he deserved. But after that combine, man, I got to admit when I was too low on a guy, it's still early enough to make that adjustment. All right, we got a couple more months before those rookie drafts. Jaden Higgins measures in at 6'4", tests very well, very fast, very athletic for his size. When you watch his tape, you see a player with good hands. He has good concentration over the middle of the field. I think he's going to play primarily along the boundary at the next level. He accelerates well along the boundary. Good body positioning. Physical hands, I would like to see him separate a little bit more consistently. That was one of my big red flags for him while I was lower on him. But you can see him. He draws a ton of DPI when you watch his tape. So that does speak a little bit to his ability to separate. Those defensive backs need to feel the need to go ahead and drag him down. 209 here, Xavier Restrepo out of Miami. I think this is one of these things where there's folks who are really in on Xavier Restrepo, would take him 203, 204. And then there's going to be some leagues where there's not that guy who's in on Xavier Restrepo, and he'll fall closer to the back end of the second round. Didn't test. I was a little disappointed with that. I didn't think Restrepo was a guy who really would benefit from sitting out testing. 5'10", 209, so the size came in just fine. He speeds up quickly. He wins over the middle of the field. I think Restrepo will be in the slot at the next level, but again, that's not a limiting thing. 5 years ago for fantasy, we would run away from that idea. Now, with the way NFL uses their slot receivers, there's plenty of volume to project there. So with Restrepo, It's going to come down to landing spot. What can we realistically project for volume? And that's going to swing him either up more in that early second round, or it could possibly even swing him down into the early third round. A wide receiver who I really like. I loved his film. He checked a lot of boxes at the combine. That's Jalen Royals, the wide receiver out of Utah State. One of my favorite sleeper type guys, and his name is starting to get out there. So I wouldn't call him a sleeper by any means, but 6'0", 205, great first step. He wins with the release. I love, folks, if you're noticing some trends here, I love wide receivers that win off the release, win with that first step. He's a quick mover. He accelerates well. Again, he showed doubled down on that speed and athletic ability at the combine. He wins over the middle of the field. He's a physical guy. Royals wins in a lot of different ways. I think he's going to be day 2 late, but like just past that top 50 mark, maybe 60, maybe at the very top of the third round. 211, Alec Aomenor. Again, if you love Aomenor, this is, you take him a little bit higher. There's just such a good wide receiver group. I will say in general, like as I'm picking through these wide receivers, who's 208, who's 210, who's 211, who's 302. It's so hard. It was so hard to figure out the right ranking of these guys because it's really going to be who are you in on. All right. So if you're not as caught up on these guys, you should listen to my breakdowns. You should go watch some film on these guys, figure out who your guy is. But nonetheless, the group that helped themselves the absolute most at the combine were these wide receivers. This middle of the wide receiver tier really bumped themselves up overall. You'll see that in the rookie big board. That tier got bigger, which means your late second round, early third round rookie picks, they got more valuable. And Alec Aomenor is a really good example of that. He's a clean route runner. He's got sharp footwork. He really scoots for his size, and his size checked out. I think that he could be deployed in an offense, 6-7 targets a game, and he could be a really effective low-end wide receiver 2, maybe high-end wide receiver 3 for you. One more guy in the second round, and that is Elijah Arroyo. He bumped down a little bit since the last mock draft, but I know the NFL is high on him. He's going to get good draft capital. 6'5", 250. He's athletic, reliable target at all 3 levels of the field. This is a decent class for tight ends. Certainly we have Tyler Warren at the top, but you're going to hear a lot of tight end names called off here throughout this mock draft. And it's because there's pretty good depth to this class as well. Folks, if you want to get ahead of your league mates, there is absolutely no better way to do it than to head on over to patreon.com/rookiebigboard. Have over 140 rookies ranked, updates on every single rookie profile. There's over 80 articles available. They are all updated with post-combine reactions. Rookie big board rankings have been adjusted post-combine. You can compare those rookie rankings directly to Dynasty and Devy rankings. You have the ability now, today, the 2025 seasonal projections drop, so you have access to go on and see every single NFL player's projection for the 2025 season, and these rookies will get added to that projection spreadsheet the night they are drafted, so you'll have an instant reaction before you head into your rookie drafts. I'm doing one-on-one draft strategy calls now, so we can jump on a call for 30 minutes, talk rookie draft strategy, all of that. And access to the Rookie Big Board Discord, where you can get 24/7 personalized advice. Folks, all of that available for just $5 a month. If you're watching a rookie mock draft video in March, if you've been watching the Rookie Big Board player profile videos, you are the type of person who is absolutely 100% going to benefit from giving this a try. The link will be in the episode description. Jump in, help yourself, support the podcast. Patreon.com/rookiebigboard. All right, let's get into it here. 301, Jalen Milroe, definitely a slider. It seems like, the chatter around here is that Milroe is not in this top 3 quarterback conversation. He's kind of the next guy up, which means I think he's going to be taken outside of the top 50. I don't think we're going to get a big QB run here. So he's a late day 2 guy. And I think that with Jalen Milroe, if you believe in his athleticism and you believe in that big arm and you believe that he's in a spot where he can take some time to actually develop and learn, the third round is the right spot to take a risk on him. 302, Isaiah Bond, big faller, but it's been steady. I feel like he's dropped a little bit in each rookie mock draft. And I've said this before, the first 7 games of the Texas season in 2025, I loved Isaiah Bond. I thought he had really good tape. Then his tape absolutely drops off. It's hard to sit here with a straight face and tell you that a guy who ran a 4.39 had a disappointing 40 time, but we thought Isaiah Bond was 4.3 fast. And so when you have some hand concerns on tape and you don't run quite as fast as you're supposed to, you're just going to slide down the board. And I don't know if drafting him in the third round is too low, but I got to tell you, there's just more exciting guys to take over him. And I think that's what's going to happen in rookie drafts. 303, Trevor Etienne. Nobody likes Trevor Etienne. 5'9", 198. I thought he did well at the combine. I still really like his tape. If you don't like Trevor Etienne, at least tell me you've sat down, you've watched 3 or 4 games of his tape, because I think it's really good. And maybe I'm wrong, but I'm willing to take that risk at 303. I mean, I think he could be a good return on value mid-second round, and you're probably going to get him early third round. LaQuint Allen, 304, didn't test at the combine, thought that was kind of weird. Haven't heard if there was an injury concern there, but I think he's a guy who would have benefited. Still really like his tape. And I know there's good chatter for him to sneak into day 2 of the NFL draft, probably back end, right? Like probably somewhere between picks 90 and 100, but day 2 late is day 2 late in my process. I don't care if you go 60 overall or 100 overall. If you go day 2, that's the same level of investment from an NFL team. And so that's the way that I distribute draft capital. What's good about him? Decisive runner, clean cuts. I like his vision. He reads space well. He's got good lateral movement ability, good hands as an extension of the passing game as well. 305, Mason Taylor, the tight end out of LSU. There's top 50 NFL draft type for Mason Taylor, projecting a little bit more conservatively here, day 2 late for him. But I really like his fluid moving ability. He's got good hands. That LSU offense ran through him. 6'5", 251. That's really good size for a guy with that level of fluidity. Next up here is Jack Betch out of TCU. Now, Betch is a guy who other folks are really in on. There could be somebody in your league who takes Betch like 208, 209. Like when I was talking about that tier of guys, Jalen Royals, Elike Menor, Xavier Restrepo, like some people will have Betch in that tier. I'm a little bit lower on him. He's the type of guy I'd like to see on my NFL team, right? Because he's short-handed. He wins over the middle. He's physical through his routes. He's scrappy. He's got good short area quickness. He moves well east to west. He's not somebody who I think is going to fit well into a projection sheet. Like it's hard for me to picture these guys, or picture Jack Beck in particular, I should say, more than 60 targets as a rookie. And that doesn't equal fantasy football points. And that, at the end of the day, the reason I talked about those projections being so helpful for rookie big board patrons to have is because at the end of the day, my whole process, my rankings, my valuations are all based on what is actually going to create fantasy football points. And I know that sounds really simple, but that's not what everybody out here is doing. And for Betch, again, I like him. I want him on my NFL team. I'm a little less interested in him on my fantasy football team. But 307 is my guy. And I got to tell you, I had half a mind to sneak him into the back end of the second round of this rookie mock draft. But it's really important for me that this reflects ADP and consensus, right? Today. But I think that he's going to be even higher in a few months. I love Ty Felton out of Maryland. I've talked about him before. I've talked about him pre-combine. Quick twitch athlete, good speed, good burst, excellent release. I love his release. He wins with a really nice first step and physical hands. Separates consistently. He's twitchy. He wins in traffic. He's got reliable hands. Here's the thing. You watch his box score, and he did have some good games, but my goodness, the quarterback play was tough at Maryland this year, right? If he had even an average quarterback in terms of the college level, we'd be talking about Ty Felton a whole lot more. And what did he do? He went to the combine, he showed up, and he showed out, and he impressed. And that's going to get a lot of folks to draft him just on that value. But I promise you, the tape backs it up as well. I'm looking to have 70% plus exposure on Ty Felton. I'm telling you, folks, I am all in on this guy. Damian Martinez, 308. I got to tell you, I was surprised a little bit. He came in at the combine 217. He was listed at 230, and I believe it. He ran like he was 230 at Miami. And the Miami tape wasn't awesome, but it was good. And the Oregon State tape was awesome. And I do think that this is a guy, it's a good running back class. Some years he could be a day 2 pick. This year, I think he's a day 3 pick, but I do not care. If I get Damian Martinez in a situation where, he's that second running back on a roster, and if somebody gets injured, he can step up. He has the skill set to be a 200 plus touch guy and be really, really effective with that. So I'm going to be looking for some Damian Martinez, especially if I can get him in the back end of round 3. Probably the biggest riser, and I will say riser, because Bashal Tutin was in my last mock draft, but I took him in the 5th round. But he was in my last mock draft because I've been talking about Tutin. We had him on the Senior Bowl episode, and just post-combine, we also did a rookie profile on Bayshawn Tootin. So if you want an in-depth look at him, head on over to that video on the Rookie Big Board. But he is a riser because I had him on the last mock draft. He's 5'9", 206. But my goodness, I did not know he was that fast. I'm not going to pretend like I knew he was going to light up the combine. Absolutely the biggest winner. And speed is important. That downfield acceleration is important. And you can see that on his tape. But it's more than that. He's decisive. I love decisive running backs. He sees space, he hits space, which is really important, especially when you're running behind the Virginia Tech offensive line, which wasn't the worst offensive line in college football, but it certainly was not the best. So that decisive ability, you take the space that's given to you. I appreciate that. He changes direction well. I like when my running backs can change direction well, and he's got good hands. He's an effective extension of the passing game. Not a super hyper PPR threat, but a guy who can catch 25 to 30 balls in a season, and you'd be surprised looking at the numbers, how much that helps you for fantasy purposes. All right, so for probably one of the biggest risers here to somebody we just still don't know anything about. 310 Quinn Ewers. I don't know, man. I wanted to sit here and tell you I know. You know, you could hear some chatter if you want that he's going to sneak into day 2. He's underrated. Teams are keeping it on the DL, on purpose. I just don't think there's that much excitement around Quinn Ewers. And I think that's a little bit of a shame. Again, I've said this before. I think Quinn should have gone back one more year of college, because I do think that he has excellent mechanics and he's got a big arm. But this is fine. I'm totally fine with him going day 3. Sit, learn, develop, learn the mental side, learn the processing side. And then I think he would still get a shot to start. Maybe it's in a year, maybe it's in 2 years, but that's what your taxi squad is for, folks. At 310, I'm taking Quinn Ewers. I'm taking a risk on that. I'm just keeping realistic expectations. 311, Trey Harris, the wide receiver out of Ole Miss here. Again, with Harris, if you liked Harris before the combine, you liked Harris after the combine. If you like the stats for Trey Harris, that's awesome. Again, the Ole Miss offense, the analytics pop off. The tape, it leaves a little bit more to be desired. I don't hate Trey Harris's tape. I think it's fine. And, fine is a fine thing to draft in the back end of the 3rd round. But there are still guys I'd like more than Trey Harris. He's bumped up in this compared to my rankings. The last pick of the 3rd round here, we're going to go with Ricky White, the wide receiver out of UNLV. A little bit of a fall or a little bit of a slider is maybe the better word for Ricky White, because I don't think he's done anything necessarily to hurt himself, but there's other wide receivers that have helped themselves and have leapfrogged him. And so that's why I have him sliding just a little bit, despite the fact that I think Ricky White has really solid tape. He's got smooth speed. He's got good hands. He wins over the middle of the field. And there's a lot that he does well, but he's probably, a rotational wide receiver in the NFL, wide receiver 3. Who could have pops of some flashes here. So 401, Tyler Shuck. I've talked about this a lot. I love Tyler Shuck. This is me dropping him relative to my rankings because I'm willing to take Tyler Shuck higher. I think he's going to get day 2 draft capital. I have absolutely no foundation for that, no inside information, but I just think he's good. And I think the NFL is going to love a guy who's 6'5", 220, can spin the ball. Excellent arm strength, great velocity, quick release, multiple release points. He's athletic. For a guy who's sick, I'm not saying he's a pure scrambler, but for a guy who's 6'5", 220, he scrambles, he's got escapability, he moves the pocket. He went to the combine, he did every single thing he could at the combine. He's clearly a competitor. He wanted to prove himself. I feel very confident that he did well in those interviews. I think that there's a lot to like about Tyler Shuck. 402, Jordan James, another guy. Not the best combine. Not a lot of folks excited about Jordan James. At the end of the day, I still think he's got really good tape. This was somebody, I'm just being transparent. I was talking about this guy as a potential 2nd round pick when it was early mock draft season. He's down in the 4th round. That's fine. Just take him in the 4th round. Just take the discount on Jordan James because the tape is good. He's a twitchy runner. He's got quick feet. He's got good burst off the snap. He's got sharp cuts, a good change of direction ability. So there is a lot to like about Jordan James, but if we can take him in the 4th round, we take him in the 4th round. 403, Savion Williams. I don't know. I'm just being honest with y'all. He could go 3rd round. I think there's going to be folks who are in on Savion Williams. I'm lower on him. So I landed on early 4th round. You could squeeze him into the 3rd round, somewhere in this range, somewhere late 3rd round, early 4th round. I don't love him a ton because it's a ton of manufacturer production on his tape. That is a big red flag for me. I've talked about that previously. He's versatile. He does have good lateral agility. He speeds up quickly. He's got good bursts, and he's got good bursts for a guy who's 6'4", 222. Like, I understand why that's exciting, but the next guy up here, 404, Brashad Smith, he's more exciting for me. And I do think Brashad Smith, like, he's going early day 3. Like, I do feel like I'm getting that validation from the places I need to get that validation. Excellent pass catcher. That's what's going to be really exciting for fantasy purposes in terms of that PPR ability. He's fluid. He's bursty, convincing footwork, sharp cutbacks. He's speedy. He's speedy on tape, but he confirmed that at the combine as well. A lot to like. Brashad Smith is absolutely one of my sleeper guys. Like, one of these guys in the 4th round that I'm going to be looking to take in 40% plus of my leagues, but I'm going to have to alternate. I'm going to have to take turns because I also want a lot of RJ Harvey, who's the 405 here. 5'8", 205, little light, but he's a patient runner. He anticipates space well. I like Harvey's ability to create his own space. He has great start-stop explosive ability. Haven't talked about that in particular a ton when talking about other running backs in this mock draft video, but Harvey has really good start-stop explosive ability. 406, Terrence Ferguson, the tight end. I was a fan of Ferguson after watching the tape, and I feel the validation. I've seen what I need to see from the combine to double down and go all in on Terrence Ferguson. 6'5", 247, day 2 late. I'm calling him. He's a day 2 pick. Why? Because he's fluid. He's fast for the position. He's got reliable hands. He's good in traffic. I think NFL teams will appreciate that. Again, good athletic testing all around. He is both a solid blocker and has some yak ability, so there's some good versatility there for the tight end position. Riley Leonard, 407, not my favorite guy. 6'4", 216, didn't do much at the combine there. Day 3 early is my projection for him. I just think he's fine. Like, he's got a lack of arm strength. I think he's got some arm talent. He's got some good accuracy. I just think the way that you're going to use Riley Leonard, it's going to be limited in the NFL, and that's not going to translate well for fantasy purposes. Like, that's not what I want to use my 4th round rookie pick on, but I understand he probably will go in the 4th round of Superflex leagues. I'd rather use my pick on Kyle Monangai out of Rutgers. And I've had Kyle Monangai in the 3rd round of rookie mocks, and because he's got good tape, he's a shifty runner, he's sharp footwork, he's elusive, he creates his own space. I love that. Good strength, good contact balance. Didn't do himself any favors in Indianapolis, though. I mean, just looking at it realistically, really rough 40 time. Not a completely damning 40 time, but a rough 40 time. That's not going to help him. Overall, the athletic profile is not solid. Just in a good running back class, I had to bump him down to day 3 late in terms of his NFL draft projection. In weaker classes, he could still be considered an early day 3 guy, but we have to be realistic about the relative strength of the class. And he's going to get washed out just a little bit because of the other running backs that he's competing against. And 409, another guy who had a tough combine here, Gunnar Helm, the tight end out of Texas. Man, he ran slow. And I didn't expect him to run fast, but he ran slow. 6'5", 241. You watch his tape, man. He's a fluid mover. And that's why I said, I think he's going to do better at the combine, or I'm sorry, better at his pro day than he did at the combine. Because on his tape, he's a fluid mover, man. He's got some shake. I really like his hands, and I think he's got excellent ball tracking ability, and he is an excellent blocker. And so the reason I dropped him is because I think the NFL is going to look at him and see somebody like, okay, yeah, we can use him in the passing game, but like, we know we can use him in the run game. And I think he's going to get drafted for the run game and for the pass blocking game as well. But, he's an excellent run blocker. And so that just might limit his fantasy potential. But I still think he should be on your radar. 410, Ja'Cory Brooks. I like Ja'Cory Brooks. Didn't help himself. Didn't really hurt himself at the combine. But I thought he tested well overall. He's got sticky hands. I like his tape. He extends well. He's got good ball skills. A little bit of an aggressive projection here. Day 2 late. That's an aggressive projection, but I like Ja'Cory Brooks. And so that's why you're saying you're going to draft a guy day 2 late. You expect him to go back into the 4th round. Like, I don't think that's where consensus is on Ja'Cory Brooks, but so I wanted to try to reflect that. But I'm a big fan of him, and that's going to be the last positive note we finish on because we got 2 more fallers to talk about. One is Harold Fannin at 411. Fannin, I mean, the thing was he didn't have an atrocious combine, but he's the type of guy at 6'3", 238. He has to come out and crush the combine. That's the thing with Harold Fannin. Like, if you look at his numbers, you're not looking at him and say, oh my goodness, that's absolutely terrible. But he needed to come out and crush it. I still think Harold Fannin's going to get drafted day 3. I think he's going to get a role in an NFL offense. But folks, I'm telling you, I really think he's going to be more of an H-back. and you don't want to touch H-backs for fantasy purposes. It's not like this has Joseph DeGuara written all over it. All right. And if you understand that reference, you know that you might have gotten played by Joseph DeGuara. And if you don't understand that reference, that's because he's not relevant. And, and that says everything you need to. 412, Tez Johnson out of Oregon. Tez, $150, man. He's small. That's okay. We kind of knew that. I mean, we knew he'd be small, but my goodness, those 40 times were bad. I mean, we were expecting him to compete for a top, 340 time from the wide receiver position. It was slow. Like running in the 4.5s, it's not good. I mean, he's going to have to run like a 4.35 or a 4.38 at his pro day for us to believe that there was just something going on in Indianapolis. You can't be small and slow. Like you can't be both of those things. And it's a bummer because I do like Tez Johnson tape. I was excited about Tez Johnson after watching his tape, but I just don't think realistically it's there. He might not even go in rookie drafts, but I felt like I had to talk about him at the 412 because he is, I think, a real kind of reflection of you can really help yourself at the combine, but you can hurt yourself as well. And unfortunately, Tez Johnson hurt himself. But folks, you can only help yourself. You can only help yourself if you head on over to patreon.com/rookiebigboard. Again, the link will be in the episode description. $5 a month, folks. Or you could save 15% off with an annual membership that gets you access to draft strategy calls, that gets you access to 2025 seasonal projections, 140 plus ranked rookies, 80 articles breaking down those rookies, dynasty rankings, Devy rankings, personalized advice in the Rookie Big Board Discord. You cannot find a better value out there with proven, actionable insight and advice that's going to help you win your fantasy football championships. You've watched this whole video. Head on over to the place that helped folks draft Puka Nacua, Justin Jefferson, Justin Herbert, Brock Bowers. Head on over there. Help yourself. Get ahead of your league mates. Patreon.com/rookiebigboard. And do me a favor here. Give the video a like if you learned even one thing. Going to be back real soon. Back to the rookie profile series.